Welcome to the Old Mac Gang podcast, OMG, the show where longtime Mac and Apple users share practical tips, apps, gear, and honest opinions for age-seasoned Apple fans. Joining tonight are Chris, Peter, Charlie, and Bob. We have the full crew here, and we're going to get some ideas about where we see tech going maybe in the next year. We call this sort of New Year's tech resolutions and wish lists. And so let's go ahead and do panel introductions, and we'll start with Chris.
Hey, good evening. I'm Chris. I'm a 78-year-old retiree in Tucson, Arizona, member of the Tucson Mac User Group. And I'm spent a lot of time with user groups, and I got a chance to work for Apple and then did some university IT to finish off my career. And now I'm retired and got lots of Apple toys, and I'm enjoying the Watch Series 11. And, I've got an M1 Mac Mini, and I'm having a lot of fun and enjoying lots of Apple services as well. Peter?
Hi, I'm Peter. I'm a 73-year-old retired Apple enthusiast. I'm not retired from being an enthusiast, and I'm in Bay Village, Ohio. I have paradoxically too much and not quite enough Apple gear and accessories, which continue to serve me well and delight me. So I have no doubt that one more thing is in my future. I love chatting about all things Apple with this old gang and our audience.
I'm Charlie Lindahl from Houston, Texas, and I'm 70 years old and retired. Goodness, really glad about that. It's been a year. I can't believe it. Anyway, I don't anticipate necessarily getting new hardware, though I'm eyeing the MacBook Pro. I have an M1 MacBook Pro, and I'm thinking about updating to the M4 M5, either MacBook or I might look at the Mini, which have a very good price point. I'm very happy with my AirPad Pro 4 and my iPhone 16 Pro, and I'm really looking forward to playing around with the real-time translation stuff, which we'll talk about later.
Hi, I'm Bob, and I'm also in Tucson. I've been a Mac user group member and mostly leader for at least 30 years now, and happy to be part of the community. Marty?
Well, I wanted to start out. We're going to talk about what our New Year's resolutions and wish lists are in a bit. But I want to start off. It was an interesting situation that happened to me this week when I went to the Apple store. First of all, I didn't buy anything. That makes it interesting in and of itself. But secondly, we were getting a Apple gift card for a friend of Aileen's. And she's an Apple enthusiast. I think she listens to this show. I know she listens to Vision Profiles. But we thought, let's get her an Apple gift card. And we went into the store, and this had never happened to me before. And I think I've bought gift cards before. But a gentleman helped us, very nice, he was dealing with a couple of people at the same time, and he handled our situation. And as I'm checking out on his phone, essentially, he says, "Oh yeah, here's the acknowledgement of gift card scams," and it is an acknowledgement that they had me agree to, that I was aware of the scams that are going on with gift cards. Now, backhandedly, he said, "You're only getting a gift card for this little amount. We know you're not a scammer, or we know you're not being scammed. It's the ones that come in that want the $500 gift cards that we really have to talk to them about why do they need a $500 gift card? Is this something that they're being asked to send somebody because they need some money or some," and it's the whole scam about getting contacted by what you think is your friend saying, "Hey, I'm lost my wallet and I'm in trouble. I got into an accident or I'm in jail. Can you send me some Apple gift cards? Because those are transferable down here." And and the guy said, "Well, for what you're getting, we don't think you're a scammer." But he noticed me and my wife, and we're up there, we're seasoned, and I think he was kind of cued to look out for people who might be pulled into this scam. Now, I didn't pull my credentials out, and I didn't say, "Well, by the way, I do a podcast on blah blah." But it was just interesting that that was part of the checkout process. And I don't know if any of you have had those same conversations when you're in an Apple store or if you're getting a Apple gift card, or any comments on that altogether. Okay. Well, just kind of an interesting thing that happened to me in terms of them kind of wanting to make sure that their customers are not being pulled into some type of gift card scam that is pretty prevalent. And I think it's probably a situation that occurs not just during the holiday season, but throughout the year, when people get kind of pulled into these scams with they think is good intent in helping people out. So let's go on with what we've got for tonight. Tonight's topic is New Year's tech resolutions, roadmaps, and wish lists for 2026. And rather than chasing kind of shiny objects, we're going to talk about intentional tech planning, what we want our Apple Gear apps and services to actually do for us in 2008. I've got some links that will be available in the show notes. And some of these aren't links, some of them are just information, like what the episode focuses on. And then, 3 types of tech resolutions that you can make. The simplification resolution, I want to simplify this process. The capability expansion, I want to increase my abilities. Future focused planning, and then building personal tech roadmap are all part of things that you can consider. And some notes and some ideas about them, again, will be embedded in the show notes. We don't have a lot of links to apps or links to websites in this show, but we do have this information that might be helpful for you in terms of setting up your New Year's tech resolutions. So let's go to the panel, and we'll start with the first question. And actually, I put myself in first this time, because you take all the good ideas from me by the time and I'm an afterthought by the time we get through. So the question is, looking back in 2025, what tech decisions worked well for you and what didn't? I really started heavily using Ecamm in 2025, and that is the software that we use for engaging in this show and other podcasts that I do. Got the information on it, had bought the license for it for about 4 or 5 months before I actually started using it, and sat down and watched a couple of 20-minute videos that took me about 40 minutes apiece to watch, because I had to stop it, take the steps to figure things out with this. And then from that point forward, have kind of learned different tips and ways to do things with this platform, that if you're on YouTube, you're seeing what it looks like and what we do with it. So that was kind of my big decision that worked well for me, to switch from just doing Zoom. And I'd done video and video capture with Zoom to something that allows a little bit more scene creation and scene design and movement in that. So Ecamm was the decision that really kind of changed the way in which I do podcasting. And once I picked up on it, it is kind of an essential. And it, when you first do it, it's always something new is always tough. But the more you do it, the better you get at it. I guess my disappointment was the Galaxy XR headset. Since I do vision profiles and the Apple Vision Pro, I decided I'd take a look at the Galaxy headset, bought it. It's still fun. And when you first put it on, you get this, wow, impact that there's, it's like finding a long lost twin brother in the environment. You've got this Vision Pro headset that is great, is absolutely great. And then you put on the Galaxy and it looks stunning and it's beautiful and it's kind of a great environment and the panels in it are good. But after a while, you get to realize how clunky it is as an interface. They haven't really cleaned it up. Although we reported on Vision Profiles a couple of things that the Galaxy XR is doing new, that is catches it up with some of the things that Apple is doing on a Vision Profile. It's still kind of disappointing because the interface is clunky. It lags. It hangs up sometimes. There are things that it advertises it can do that you can't do. So that's my 2025 disappointment. Chris.
Well, about a year ago, as you know, the old Mac gang was coming together. I met Marty and Peter and Gary, all from the Cleveland area, and they were all talking about ChatGPT. And I had previously been thinking, I'm going to wait until Siri gets it together with ChatGPT or whatever they're going to do. And my Siri just went off. And etc. Well, I felt a little bit shamed into it. So I thought, well, okay, I'm going to take the big dive here. And gee, yeah, my iPad here is going off with the yes lady. And I have to say, it is my big story for 2025. In the spring, I finally got the Plus account for $20 a month, and I've probably so I could put things into folders, which is a big advantage of the Plus account. Plus, more or less assures that your work isn't going to go away, and I was a little concerned with that. And I've now probably done close to 135 different searches, and I use it all the time. And it's like already my right hand entity here in my study. I can't call it my right hand person, but it's my right hand entity. I use it constantly, and it's really made a change in terms of I do a lot of stuff on Duolingo with languages. You run into weird problems that don't get explained with grammar. So I take them to ChatGPT. Well, it knows, I'm also studying Spanish and French, and I have enough Latin to be dangerous. And so it does these trilingual comparisons. It's just, invaluable. I don't know how else I could do stuff. I mean, there are things I'm doing on ChatGPT that I don't think could be done otherwise. Now, from a pure hardware point of view, yes, I got the Watch 11 this year, and I'm really enjoying that because my Series 6 battery was just about done. I had to charge it at least twice a day. And probably my last thing was I reinvigorated my 9th generation iPad to use as my sidekick here. That's the one with the iris or the S ladies going off on here because I use the continuity camera for my webcam. So I obviously don't have access to the iPhone while we're doing this, and so I'm using my iPad on a laptop stand, and it's working great. So those are sort of my big wins, I think, for 2025.
Yeah, my best tech decision this year is sort of an elaboration of a decision I made a few years ago. A few years ago, I set up a Synology network attached storage device. And I set it up then as a giant disk, which is attached to my MacBook Pro when I plugged in my office. And that allowed me to share a lot of things with my iPad and phone and Apple TV and other devices in my house, as long as my MacBook Pro is plugged in. This year, I dove into the software and made everything work either direct or when it's detached. So if I unplug my laptop, I can access all the stuff on the Synology either plugged in or not plugged in. Of course, obviously, it's faster when I'm plugged in. And in fact, when I'm somewhere else in town or somewhere else in the country, or I imagine, although I haven't done it yet, somewhere else in the world. And everything, music, movies, extra photos, files that I don't keep on my MacBook Pro are there on my Synology, as well as Time Machine backups. And that's the one thing I haven't totally hooked up. Time Machine will work When I'm plugged in, it dumps everything from my MacBook Pro that when I haven't been plugged in into the time machine. But I want to figure a way to sort of virtually plug it in when I'm off on a vacation or something like that. And I think I've figured out how to do that. I just haven't done that yet. It didn't fit in to 2025. And one other thing, really quickly, I've been getting a new iPhone every year for the past several years, but I got to say this year is probably the most satisfied I've been with any new iPhone, a few months in. It just feels so solid. The features seem so, evolved and convenient. It runs cool. I every year I like something about my new iPhone, but this year I'm just totally delighted.
Let's see. I took advantage of the T-Mobile offer and bought an iPhone 16 Pro for $7 a month more, and I'm very happy with that because I constantly got bombarded with loading apps and stuff like that on my iPhone 12, and it kept saying it was almost out of memory and all that kind of stuff. So I'm very happy about the iPhone 16, and I also got some AirPod 4s, and I'm looking forward to. And I also got an Apple Watch Series 10. Anyway, those are my things that I've done this year.
Bob?
For me, what worked well in 2025 was the iPad Air that I purchased in January of 2025. And I did that to replace an aging iPad Pro. I'm happy with the Air. It does all that I needed to do, and it's priced less than the iPad Pro. My disappointment is the same thing. I was disappointed after purchasing the iPad Air in January that 2 weeks later, the new iPad Air came out with a new updated version. So if I caused that to happen, you're welcome.
Well, Bob, you know what you do in that situation is you sell it to someone else and you can get a new one. Um, that's the easiest way to solve that problem and the guilt that goes along with it. It's hard to predict when new models are going to come out. There are some, I guess, some sites that are going to say that it will tell you hold off for a month because we've got some information in the flow that this is going to be coming out in terms of that, and you can follow that and chase those things. But I think as we've said on the show, the best time to get is a new piece of device is when
When you
you
need it.
find a need for you need it and you find a need for it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's what you did, and that's pretty cool. I also like the fact that you made the decision to move from an iPad Pro to an iPad Air, and it still satisfied all the work that you would be doing on it without the heavy price tag of the Pro. So that's cool. That's very cool. Next question, and again, I get to start on this one, is what is one tech resolution you're setting for yourself in 2026? I actually have two. So I'll start with that. I've already mentioned Ecamm, and I haven't pushed the limits of Ecamm. I haven't pushed my knowledge limits of it or the capabilities of it. So the idea of having comments come in when we have audience making comments about stuff, doing some other movement and some other designing with it, I haven't done quite yet. And then there are some ways that you can automate Ecamm to produce things like show summaries and things like that, and I haven't quite done that yet. So Ecamm is one. This, however, has been sort of my headache for years, and I pay for this, and I hear marvelous things about it, and I hear wonderful stories about how it's used. Jill McInerney or Jill in the North Woods uses Notion as a incredible system for all the work that she does, and it will give you opportunities for inboxes. It will give you opportunities for calendar. And it just, there are templates that are associated with it, and you can set up, you can purchase templates or find templates that people have done to run various types of and organize things. I've heard of people putting their Mac user groups and running their whole Mac user group in the sense of mailing, the sense of information, in the sense of creating websites. All of those things seem to be possible with Notion. I have had an account with Notion for at least a couple of years and have picked it up and tried it on and off. I am just going to have to sit down and watch some videos and work through it and figure out how to use it as a tool. Whether it winds up being my productivity tool or not, I don't know, but I'm curious about what all the hubbub is. There was a lot of chatter about it, 2 years ago or so, and people were really starting to use it, and there are people who live and die by it. But I still haven't managed to figure that out yet. So that's my tech resolution. I'm going to continue to work with Ecamm, but I'm going to try and learn how to use Notion at least to determine whether or not this is something that I can use or not. Chris.
Well, first of all, I'll tag a story on to what Bob was sharing. I got the AirPod Pro 3 like 3 weeks before the AirPod I got the 3 weeks before the new AirPods came out. And so I was bemoaning about this when I got my watch. And they said, well, did you buy them here at the Apple store? And I went, no, I got them on sale on Amazon. They said, well, next time, if you buy them through here, you could talk to the manager. We'll see if we could swing something. So that was interesting. Well, the reason I had gotten these is one of my friends at the Tucson Audubon show shows up with these AirPod Pro 3s and saying they're better than his hearing aids. Well, I had to test them at that point. Turns out he was wrong. I was wrong. They're not as good as the high-end hearing aids. But an interesting story, that same friend, apparently his hearing is so bad that he is working with a startup in San Francisco that's producing glasses that will render closed captions for conversation. It works with the iPhone and the microphones in the glasses, and it sounds like it's going to be a very interesting thing. I'm not sure I could I'm a closed caption kind of guy because of my hearing when I watch TV shows and movies, but I don't know, to render that on glasses, that'll be an interesting thing. Might be a very interesting thing, use of AR. In any event, my my resolution, being a photographer, I take tons of pictures, but I don't process them, I don't share them. I've got a website on SmugMug, on Flickr, on 500px, Adobe Portfolios. The tools are great. I just need to sit down and really start sharing some photos again. I had some good stuff going on in Flickr in that community with a number of interesting photographers who did very similar to work to mine. And, one guy was in Poland and another guy was, I forget, somewhere like Thailand or Singapore. And it's just very interesting to share with other photographers. So that's my resolution, to do that. Peter?
Yeah, I ended up with 2 resolutions, maybe because the first one may not resonate totally with everyone in the audience. I really want to put together a vibe coding setup for for programming tools I already know how to use well. I use a lot of R to do statistical analysis and a lot of Python to play recreational math games. And I want to do those in the same kind of integrated development environment that I've gotten used to. And I want to extend my creations into weblets so I can turn them into JavaScript and share them on web pages with other people. And then once I do that, maybe I'll have some resonance. But the big idea is just I want to learn something new. And the other thing I want to learn that may resonate is the product Canva. We've talked about it here before. I've just seen so many people in groups I've been in turn out some very nice, high quality graphics fairly quickly, nicely done. And I know It seems like they do it easier than I do with my 2 or 3 old man tools that I've been using for 20 years. I want to get into that and learn that and see if it's something better than what I'm doing.
Yeah, mainly I want to clean up my hardware mess. I've got old machines that I'm never going to use again. I still have a Mac SE, which I'm going to keep just because it was the first Mac I ever bought. Um, but I have an iMac someone gave me, and I don't even know I think it's an Intel, so I'm not even sure if it'll run the latest stuff or not. And I also have a collection of PCs that people have dumped on me, and I just need to get rid of them. And I also I'm looking very heavily at how to clean up my cable mess on my desk. And there are a lot of really fun little, cable organizers, which I can 3D print, as a matter of fact. So anyway, clean up my hardware is basically the thing.
Okay, Bob.
Well, as others have said, education is my resolution. I want to spend more time learning the software that I already have, such as Affinity Studio and Topaz Gigapixel, and getting back to learning how to make a simple database in LibreOffice. Our user group needs this for a membership database. I still miss ClarisWorks, AppleWorks. I was pretty good with that database module. So my resolution is to do some more self-education. Back to you, Marty.
You know, I miss Bento as a database. I that was one of the. And I was not into FileMaker. That was expensive for me as an individual to get. I had done some things in the Windows version of the database. I forget what the program was called, and got into Bento because I was doing a conference and needed to have some way to organize. And then it disappeared. I stopped using it because the conference was over and such. But then it disappeared, and I miss having something that simple and not so complex. There is Panorama X, which is Jim Ray's software that is a sort of web-based database system that works pretty well. I've been playing around with that to try and see if I can create a open kind of database for some ideas that I want to have the group generate and then used in the open space if we can do that. But that's another reasonable piece of software looking at databases. We had this conversation. Bob was there at the Apple user group, worldwide user group, where we talked about how do people handle memberships, how do people handle those kinds of things. So I'm glad you're getting back into it, Bob, and I'm glad that you're maybe looking at things like LibreOffice as possibilities for that kind of thing. Third question. Do you have a personal tech roadmap for 2026? If so, what does it include? My personal tech roadmap would be getting kind of better management of my workflow, particularly with my podcast production. I'd like to see if there are things that I can automate. I mean, I can do this pretty quickly, but it's still, after you've done it hundreds of times, it becomes more tedious. Even though when I first started doing this, audio production for just podcasts would take me 5 hours to get a 30-minute show out just to make the corrections with it. Now I can pretty much produce these very quickly, but I got more podcasts and would like to see if there are portions of this that I can automate. I also realize I've got 5 different or 6 or 7 different YouTube channels for the different podcasts that I do. And the first thing I think is I'm going to put them all under one branding channel, or at least have them connected through one branding channel, so people can go to that branding channel and get anything off the smorgasbord of podcasts that they might be interested in. So that's my personal tech roadmap for 2026. And my 2026 started yesterday when we were done with our university contract, and will end January 12th when we're back on university contract. So I'm going to try and get some of this work done over that period of time. Peter, or Chris, excuse me.
Yeah, I'm going to continue my AI excursions. We've talked about this before, so I'll be brief. But principally, it's, of course, ChatGPT that I've already talked about. I also use the DuckDuckGo search engine in Safari, and which brings along with it the new Duck AI that they have, and which I just used today. And the search assist was very helpful, gave me exactly what I needed. But the thing I'm really looking forward to is the rollout of the new Siri. And so that's going to be really interesting to see how it happens. From what I can piece together, this is going to start sometime in March or April with 26.4 on iOS and Tahoe, and probably continue through the end of the year with the OS's 27. So that's going to be something I'm really interested to see how it all integrates together with the new Siri. We're also my wife and I are taking a 10-week course on Tolstoy's War and Peace. That's going to be this winter and spring, which is a non-trivial amount of reading, so that'll be a lot of fun. But I know the professor, and she's absolutely fantastic. She had previously taught Dr. Zhivago, which encouraged me to go back and look into my old Russian language work, which was, yeah, well, she's a very interesting professor, let's put it that way. She spent a lot of time in Russia over the years. And she had some very interesting insights into Pasternak's life and how it was actually the CIA that published Dr. Zhivago in Russian and got it back into the Soviet Union, which people say was the most effective thing we ever did in the Cold War, which is interesting. But in a more general sense, I want to try to stay focused on my projects this year and stay away from unproductive YouTubes and Reels and stuff. Another thing that's on my tech roadmap is I've recently rediscovered that when reading an article in a Spanish or French newspaper in that language, that I can right click to translate sentences and paragraphs, and it makes it very pleasurable, because a lot of times, a paragraph I can read most of it, and the other paragraphs I can't read any of it, but it's, now that we've got that right click to translate, it just makes it so much smoother. I wish Amazon had something similar for foreign language books. I suggested it to Amazon back in the day when I was an early stockholder and sold out way too soon. And they ignored it, never got back in touch with me. So I thought, well, okay. They were more interested in selling freezers than doing more with books. So at any rate, that's sort of my tech roadmap. Peter?
Yeah, my tech roadmap is focused on one big, long-awaited thing. So, my work surface in my office. So, at long last, I'm going to rig it into an elevator desktop that goes up and down. When I want to stand up, push a button, pops up, I stand up. When I get tired of standing up, push the button again, pull up my chair, and work sitting down. And so it's going to include a couple of other elements. So refining things like my document camera and some of the lighting and all that would be one thing, and refactoring and reorganizing all of my cabling. So sort of what Charlie was talking about. The mess under the desk back in the corner is noodle soup right now. That could use a good look, and I look forward to that at the same time as I do something that'll make what little bit of arthritis I have hopefully go away for good.
Good luck.
Charlie.
Well, I've got a list, and it's in the notes. I'm really thinking I want to replace my MacBook Pro M1 with either an M4 or an M5, and I may actually go for the Mini, because I could use the MacBook Pro M1 for my portable stuff, but the cost of the minis with the M4 and M5 is just it's like $500, and I find it hard to. That's kind of important. And I also recently got uh, asked to edit videos from a guy that does documentaries, and he's a professional documentarian. So in the past, I haven't really needed to have a lot of horsepower for videos editing, but I think I may move for that reason. The other thing I've been wanting to do is start playing with real-time translation on my iPhone 16 and AirPod 4s. Continue to learn Spanish with Duolingo, and Chris and I get the messages eventually, back and forth saying, "Hey, you're at this level, you're at this level," and Chris is on more of a level than I am, but I'm at 235 days straight, and it's kind of interesting. Clean up my desk, and the last thing, it's a programming project to keep myself current. I've been looking at building apps to clean up my infrastructure, and what I mean that, and I'd love to talk to you all about specifics here, but I have a lot of great spam filters and all that kind of stuff, but I want to write utilities that let me clean up my text and my email chains. And I haven't found any tools that will do what I want it to do. So, for example, I could say, give me all the emails from Chris from the last year. And yes, you can kind of struggle with different, um, uh, search techniques and so forth like that. But trying to save away text chains in the Messages app is really painful. And I want to write some pretty simple interfaces to do that kind of stuff, and that'll keep me up to speed on doing APIs and talking to other systems and so forth. Anyway,
Well, for me, I think that 2025 will be the year of the Apple Watch 11 or 12. I kid myself telling myself that I will make only one purchase per year: desktop, MacBook, iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch, Apple TV. I don't count those accessories like cases and watch bands and stuff. So maybe I can hold myself to just an Apple Watch this year. And hopefully the oxygen sensor reading will get back to the way that it was.
Yeah, interesting thing about the oxygen sensor with the new ones, you can do it. Of course, you know this, Bob. You can do it, but it has to interface through your health app, and you'll get the information from your health app as a notification. So that's Apple's current workaround. My understanding is that they've been brought back into court with a challenge on that from Massimo, and we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, oxygen sensor is pretty key, particularly I think with our age group, with with my sleep apnea, with my other heart conditions and things like that. That oxygen sensor is very well needed. I just put the question to the chat room and asked Craig. Use what would be Craig's tech resolution or resolution that he would want to do. And his response was using the tools I currently have more effectively now that I'm retired. I just haven't had the time to do it until now when he has become recently retired. So his resolution is to use the tools that he already has that he hasn't explored yet. So that's pretty cool. Thanks for sharing that, Craig. Last question is what's currently on your Apple Tech wish list for 2026? And for me, it is a foldable phone. I'll tell you, I have tried the foldable phones in other platforms and love them except for the platform. I just don't like being tied to an Android platform. Besides, everything I do is in the Apple ecosystem. So I do like the form factor. I prefer the Pixel that opens like a book versus the Galaxy that opens like a wine list, a tall, thin wine list, or the Samsung that opens like that. So I I'm looking forward to Apple's take on that, and I hope it comes out this year. There's been some talk about that. And then finally, a usable contextual based S Lady. I hope that Apple, with its with its new leadership in these areas, there's the one area in terms of Apple Intelligence that they need to improve, that they can finally get that thing working, whether it's with Gemini and Google, or whether it's without Gemini, or whether Gemini is just the visitor for a year until they can get their own system going. I would just like to see a more usable, contextual, secure based S Lady. And then the other thing I'm hoping for is, and this discussion occurred on, I think it was on After Dark in Chuck Joyner's show. The the idea that we've attempted to get all of our interfaces between the phone, the iPad, and the Mac to be similar. And there is a good argument to say they don't have to be all similar, because when you make them similar, you lose the qualities that are really good on the iPad don't work well on the phone. The qualities that work really well on the phone of the interface doesn't work at all in Mac OS. So I'm kind of hoping that on the wish list they start to those that hardware and the platforms that are running on that hardware, the interfaces, get a little dissimilar, and that we get better platforms, better interfaces for each different kind of hardware. And that includes the Vision Pro too. Everything doesn't have to look like or run like on the phone, the iPad, and the Mac OS. Doesn't have to look like and run like the Vision Pro. So that's kind of my hope. Chris.
Well, my wish list also includes a potential new iPhone. I have the 16 Pro Max, which I'm perfectly fine with keeping, but I'm always interested to see what new phones are going to bring out, and I'm curious about the foldable, and so that'll be something I'll take a look at. I'm having trouble building a case in my mind for why I would want a foldable phone, but then again, who knows? That's the purpose of marketing, right? And so my M1 Mac Mini with the maximum 16 gigs of RAM and 1 terabyte of storage is almost 5 years old now, and it's getting really long in the tooth. It really struggles with the RAM, and I've been thinking about upgrading. One of our local techs here in the Mac user group, Kevin, has talked me into taking a strong look at the M5 MacBook Pro, although he said the M4 with the Pro or Max chip is significantly faster than the M5. And that, I could get that potentially with 48 gigs of RAM, which would be an interesting thing. But it's a little pricey. I'm not sure I'm ready to spend that. But anyway, so those are things on the hardware side. On the software side, just reiterating what Marty said, I was thinking about this today and remembering back to John Scully's Knowledge Navigator, and I dug up a couple of links. One to the original video that was produced by George Lucas when John went to him, and there's another link. I hope this link actually works. That somebody interviewed John a few years back on how he built that together about the Newton, and it's a very, very cool video historically. But it talks anyway about the Knowledge Navigator and what their idea was at that. And as he was saying at the time, no internet, no no iPhones, none of this stuff existed yet, and they were like really pulling it out of the air with some visionary people. And it's a cool video. So I'm hoping we're getting a little bit closer to the Knowledge Navigator. It would be nice in some ways with ChatGPT. I think we probably already are there. But anyway, so that's what I'm thinking of, and check out those links if you want a fun trip down memory lane. Peter?
Yeah, I'm focused on hardware. So number one by a mile for me is I'm hoping for a Studio Display 2. I long for a better camera. The camera in my current Studio display is not as good as the one in my MacBook Pro. And although it's arguably equal to the one in my iPad Pro, my iPad Pro has enough computational photography that it is functionally better. So I know I can attach my iPhone up there or some other camera, but I would like it just to be built in and work better. Of course, I'd like a better screen. My screens on my MacBook Pro and iPad have also surpassed the Studio Display, so that would be nice. I haven't heard it talked about, but I would hope for slightly better sound. I mean, I would hope they would try to improve it all around. I do have giant uh, studio monitors in my office, so I can switch my sound to something that no monitor's ever gonna compete with. So it's really not necessary for me. But in case it gets moved somewhere else, I mean, I like to see improvements all around. The other hardware that I'm interested in and hopeful for in the coming year would be AirTags 2. I've been postponing getting additional ones, thinking as they're going to come any day now. They're going to come any day now. Well, they haven't come, but uh, I probably will get some if they don't come within the first quarter next year for a couple things that I could use them for. And I guess I would be interested in looking at the next generation of an Apple TV. My current one drives the resolution of the television that I have, but if it could drive some of the ones I saw when I was over at Best Buy, that might be nice. Maybe Best Buy will get a sale from me as well.
Charlie.
Generally speaking, I want to follow the Apple AI, and particularly how it works totally on the Apple platform. I'm really tired of having all these different systems that are not set up to be that take advantage of the Apple environment, and I really am looking forward to seeing what comes out there. The other thing is I'm very much into real-time translation, and I have a friend over at University of Milan that has said he's going to be lining up a project to try and compare different translation technologies. And the other thing is I do a lot of streaming and trying to learn Duolingo Spanish. Um, I'm going to be testing the AirPod 4 or AirPod 4 with iPhone Pro, and I'm going to be watching streaming. I'm going to set my streamer Roku to do everything in Spanish and then see if it does translation well. So that's going to be an interesting experiment.
Bob, you get to round it out for us.
Okay, I've got a quick handful of wishes on my wish list. First one's a deeper S-Lady / Apple Intelligence integration. I'm not really looking for when is Aunt Ruth's plane getting into Tucson, but how about the ability to look for it to look into contacts for an address that I know is there, but I'm driving. The second thing would be I wish that Apple would settle the lawsuit with Massimo one way or the other and get the oxygen sensor to work with my new Apple Watch in the way that Apple intended. I would also wish for Apple to create a cellular / satellite carrier, and it would be nice to have the Apple quality in a cell carrier. How about an Apple Vision Air for about $1,500? And finally, something that may actually happen is my local electric company here in far suburban Tucson is talking up their new fiber internet service. I sure hope it happens. They're talking about the ability to sell me 300 up and 300 down for a few bucks less than I'm currently paying for 25 down and 10 up to a Wi-Fi provider. But even that was much better and much less expensive than what I paid to the local telephone company for a DSL where I got 13 down and 0.7 up. and that is with the wind at my back and going downhill. So I don't think I'm going to get all five of those, but I'd like to get one or two.
Well, Bob, I can give you that Apple Vision Air for $1,500. It's called a Meta Ray Bans. And it will do everything that a $1,500 Apple Vision Air will do. I'm following that closely, obviously, because of the Vision Profiles podcast, and I'm interested in an Air. I think you're going to see that. You're going to see Apple glasses. You're not going to see an Apple Vision Air. And I bet they're around 2,200, just the other side of 2,000, with different capabilities than what you get with a Vision Pro. So I can't speak to the cellular or satellite carrier. That would be interesting. They talked about putting their own modems in, Apple putting in their C1s or whatever, into some of the things like a MacBook with a cellular connection, and that sounds interesting. But yeah, these are all pretty interesting. Everybody had some pretty interesting things on their wish list, and yeah. Any other comments from the group? Yeah, Chris.
One of the things I noticed here in town is when I use Verizon Home Internet, so I'm happy to get about, like Bob saying, about 25 down and about 10 up. Um, and I've been after them to fix the tower over here, and they finally have in my part of town. But I'm a little bit removed from town, although a lot closer than Bob. But however, I was over in the Northwest Hospital area, a big medical sort of center part of town, and I was downloading, I think, one of the betas for iOS 26, and I noticed that I was getting 1,500 to 1,800 down. This is 5G ultra wide, and I could get almost, with the speed tests, almost 100 up. It was sort of between 50 and 100, it varied. But I can consistently get 1,500 or more down. So there is enormous capability in 5G. And the question is, when is it going to get out to the rest of us? Um, I don't know if you guys have seen it in different parts of the country, but they have these things here that almost look like they're the size of an old tennis ball can with 3 tennis balls. And it's pure aluminum, and they put them on a pipe, and they just have them along the street, like street lights. And that's what I think is producing this enormous bandwidth. So I'll be really curious to see where the 5G technology goes. And with Apple putting modems into stuff in the future, that's great. I mean, wouldn't it be great if every laptop just automatically had that modem, cellular modem?
Well, I don't want to turn into a show where we talk about which one's bigger. But I just ran a speed test because I was listening to Bob's numbers. And although we're doing streaming now and probably stressing it a bit, I got 571 download and 27 upload in terms of speed. And I'm on Spectrum. And I'm paying for it. I'm paying for a higher speed Spectrum because of doing work like this. But if you're doing this, you're doing media, you need to have good bandwidth for doing the work that you have to do. So I hope that comes to everybody in the new year, if that's possible. Any final comments, or should we call it a show? I
Just
think we call
happy
it.
holidays.
Yeah.
Happy holidays to everybody.
Yeah. And speaking of holidays, we're going to be dark for 2 shows. It's like when I teach class on Monday night and I have a semester schedule, there's always those holidays that fall on Monday. That means I don't have to teach that night. Well, it just happens this year. We've got Christmas and New Year's falling on our usual Wednesday night recording time. So we will be back January 7th. So don't forget about us. We won't forget about you. And we'll come back, as Charlie said, in the new year with some new shows. And we're grateful for everybody that's kind of jumped on to the old Mac gang. It's nice because I get to see subscribers slowly increase. Please get the word out to your Mac user groups. We have a fun time with this, and I think it's going to be an enjoyable listen for folks. You can catch us on YouTube and any of the old shows at youtube.com/at Old Mac Gang. That's the @ symbol, Old Mac Gang. That is our YouTube channel. This information's also in the show notes of the video and audio podcast. So you'll be able to pull that off of there if you forget. Our music is by Philip Gross Marrakesh. Thanks to Bob, Chris, Peter, and Charlie. And you can find us at thepodtalk.net is our website. And email us at thepodtalknetwork@gmail.com. Thank you for spending part of your week and being part of the Old Man